Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Welcome everyone to another installment of Game Over Calgary. My name is Matt DeMille, and I'm one of the hosts for Game Over Calgary. We are breaking down post-game the Flames and Ducks game that went on tonight. Obviously, a lot more storylines came outside of the game itself today, of course, with the trade going down between the Philadelphia Flyers. But nonetheless, what was kind of had the hopes to be maybe a sleepy Thursday in Cowtown turned into quite a barn burner, both on the ice and off the ice. So much to break down, so much to talk about. I'm so glad to be on for this stream tonight. I feel like I'm going to be talking for a while, but of course, the Flames defeat the Ducks 4-1 at home. They're now 2-0 in the season series against Anaheim. And they, I believe, extend their record to 25, 18, and 7 for 57 points on the season. And I believe that's enough to pass the Vancouver Canucks in the Pacific Division for the second wildcard spot and fourth in the Pacific. So big game nonetheless. But as I said, the storylines in tonight's game kind of fell outside of the game itself. And of course, there were the storylines between Anaheim, but the bigger storylines tonight were obviously the trade involving Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelche, and the newest Flames, Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. That is obviously going to be the big talking point, big contingency in tonight's show. I said it on Twitter today. Just based off what happened this afternoon, I kind of tried to make a little bit of a plan, do some sort of planning and getting set for today, but at this point I've kind of committed to maybe flying a little bit by the seat of my pants and chatting about what went on today. Obviously, before we can jump into tonight's stream, I need to shout out our the Hyperdrive hockey team. Shift into Hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your new source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max Van Hoot, Daphne Malbouf, and Kevin Laramie every Monday and Thursday for your fill on the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Head to our website, thegameovernetwork.com, for more. The Hyperdrive Hockey crew is doing fantastic stuff. They do a segment with the entire Game Over community called I'm Not Even Sorry. More of like a hot takes bit as well. Do it on their show. I hope I get out there one time, but I know both your Game Over Calgary host, Conrad Krausert, has already been on the show, and they're doing fantastic stuff. So obviously, if you love the Game Over Network, we would love to show those guys some support. As I said, they're doing some fantastic stuff. Now, the biggest kind of talking point in tonight's game, as I said, came outside of the game itself, kind of from the cell phone of Craig Conroy and kind of press box stuff. We're talking about the trade between the Calgary Flames and the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't know if it's Takai number one, just checking the chat here. I don't know if it is officially official. I've been refreshing Twitter. It's kind of what I did most of the night here. But the official trade call still hasn't happened. Waiting till the Flames game is obviously kind of run its path and all of the game is done. But it is shaping up to be Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost going to Calgary in exchange for forwards Jacob Pelche, Andrei Kuzmenko, a second-round pick, and a seventh-round pick. As I said, unconfirmed just yet. It seems like it's more so just having to dot the I's, cross the T's type thing, but just be known, it is subject to change. It isn't 100% guaranteed, but that's what all the quote-unquote insiders are tweeting. So that's what we're going to go with for the show as of right now. Either way, some big news coming up ahead of tonight's game. I know it was kind of teased from some of the local Flames media prior to the game that something was a brewing, maybe throughout Andrei's Andrei Kuzmenko's name as him being a healthy scratch ahead of tonight's game. And obviously that kind of evolved into what we saw tonight with rumors flying left and right. Jacob Pelche leaving at the end of the first period, not really having much confirmation until we saw Elliot Friedman tweet out that he was a part of the deal. Of course, Morgan Frost also being removed from the game in Philadelphia tonight. However, there was Tortorella said in his post-game presser that he just was feeling off today, wasn't feeling well, and then it turns out he is possibly a part of the trade as well. So it was kind of a lot of hijinks kind of up in the air with this trade. Of course, a lot of people trying to, comment and break the trade and stuff. And from what we've seen consistently, it's involving those four players. Again, I don't want to act like it is completely done and dusted because, of course, a lot is subject to change until the call comes in. And as you can see, I am literally looking at the Twitter feed right now as the stream is going on just to see if it is set in stone. But just for the sake of this post-game show, yes, Flames move on from Andrei Kuzmenko. The biggest unkept secret in the entire National Hockey League is it was really just a matter of time until we saw Andrei Kuzmenko find a new home, whether it be a contract termination, whether it be a trade, any kind of stuff. And obviously, tonight is the night it happened. And it is funny enough that it was 364 days ago today that the Flames brought in Andrei Kuzmenko following the Elias Lindholm trade with the Vancouver Canucks, and obviously it didn't pan out the way we wanted it to. But granted, I think when you consider that return that the Flames get in a trade like that, again, unconfirmed, don't want to be saying, 100% this is what it looks like, but the way it's shaping up to be, I'm really, really liking this return. Of course, Andrei Kuzmenko, pretty much done and dusted. It was just a matter of time until he found a home elsewhere. The biggest piece, and I would say the more shocking piece that I wasn't necessarily expecting, was the addition of Jacob Pelche into the move. And I think it's something that I don't know if Craig Conroy necessarily expected either, in the sense that, they put him in the lineup tonight. So whether he was kind of on the market or not, I think things had to progress pretty rapidly for Conroy or Huska to originally dress him and then to pull him. And I think the same can be said for a guy like Morgan Frost as well. But all things considered, I think this is a really, really good trade for the Flames. I know we've chatted on this stream with Ruby, with Merrick, Conrad, Anand. It seems like every night we're kind of talking about a trade that is going down or potential trade that is happening. And of course, I don't think Pelche was kind of on the list of guys that would be potentially moved and guys that are on my list that kind of need to be moved. But when you kind of examine the trade and what kind of went on, I do like the move that Craig Conroy did tonight. And again, it's tough to let go of a guy like Jacob Pelche because, I will say it myself, I loved him. I think he's a fantastic personality on the team. I think he brings such an energy and such a spark to the team. And you could see, he's only 23 years old, but he means a lot to the team. And that is something that I'm sure in the locker room tonight, it's, you just kind of, you had your way with Anaheim in that second and third period. You pick up the 2 points, but I think this will probably be the most somber 2 points the Flames will have this season, based off what happened in the press box tonight and seeing their buddy Jacob Pelche move on and find a new opportunity in Philadelphia. But as I said, I think the return is what is really, really interesting for the Flames. It's being reported, again, I feel like I'm going to say it a million times, but I just want to make sure. It's being reported, not confirmed, that the Calgary portion of the trade, they're receiving center Morgan Frost, who is a 25-year-old on an expiring RFA deal, alongside 24-year-old left winger Joel Farabee. Those are the two pieces that come to Calgary. And genuinely, I really, really, really like this trade. I think just talking on Discord with all of our audience as well as the rest of the Game Over Calgary hosts, I think we are all really excited about this trade. Obviously, they're not having both Frost and Farabee aren't having the greatest seasons in Philadelphia, but they do show a lot of potential. And as I've said in past streams before, I am very cautious about the Flames and what they do when it comes to trading. Obviously, there is a benefit of trading more veteran guys for assets to really flesh out this rebuild, but it was also kind of rumored that the Flames were also looking for a a top six, middle six center role, and we know very well how bad the Flames centermen and winning faceoffs have been. So this is a really good get because they kind of found the guy that they were looking for. I know Dylan Cousins in Buffalo was kind of the guy that was rumored to be a part of, or the Flames. He was kind of rumored to be a big target for the Flames, and I don't know if Morgan Frost was maybe a part of that in a name that had been brought up. But I really like this get for the Flames. 48 games played this year, only 25 points. Again, he's on a 1-year, $2.1 million year currently. Heading into this offseason, he will be an RFA, but it will give the Flames an opportunity to extend him without having to go to the free agency route as well. So that is, I think Conroy here, Morgan Frost is an acquisition that I don't think is your trade deadline kind of buy that you see more of like a rental. I think this is a guy that Conroy wants to lock down, and I'm all for it. I said if a trade is going to happen for the Flames and it's going to involve bodies coming back, I want this team to stay the course in terms of let's flesh out this rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it, and that involves bringing young guys into the crew. Of course, Pelche was the youngest guy that left at 23 years old, but you brought in a 25 and a 24-year-old. So I really do think that that is a good get for the Flames, and the return is very reasonable, and I honestly think I really like this return. Morgan Frost has shown shades of being quite a dominant player in the center slot. Again, I think you can maybe even say he's his production, both him and Farabee's production has dropped off this year. And I mean, honestly, I don't want to say too much about his coaching style, but we've all heard that John Tortorella is a very, I don't know what the word is that I want to say, but he's a very contrasty type coach. It's either you love him or you hate him. And I mean, if tonight was any indication, with him and Matvei Mishkov basically going, bar for bar, yelling at each other on the bench, he is a very passionate coach, and he coaches a very hard style, and I can't say there's very many players in this league that kind of adapt well to his coaching style. So, I could even say Frost and Farabee's production and the drop that we've seen this year has been based on they don't necessarily jive with the coaching staff that is in Philadelphia, whereas in Calgary, it seems like Ryan Huska is doing a fantastic job building up this team chemistry, and this team is despite them maybe being in that wild card hunt and not having the greatest season that they would expect as a team, they seem very close-knit, they seem very tight, and I think that is a very strong indication of the type of coaching staff the Flames have. So I really do think that those two guys being a part of the return for the Flames, they can find their footing in Calgary, because again, they have shown shades of being very good forwards for Philadelphia. Even Joel Farabee is a two-time 20-goal scorer, and again, he's only 24 years old. And what I love about Farabee is there is still contract to him. He is, I guess, including this season, his contract is 4 years at $5 million. So after this season ends, we're gonna have him on contract for 3 more years. So you don't have to worry about re-signing him until 2027, 28, where he'll be, the ripe age of 28, really in his prime, and kind of where you want to see the Flames really making that shift upwards. New barn, new team type thing. So I just think the age and the demographic that the Flames were looking at, Conroy did a fantastic job getting in return. And again, 2 really good players. Both guys went in the first round. I believe Morgan Frost was 27th overall in the 2017 NHL draft, and Joel Farabee was 14th overall in the 2018 NHL draft. So 2 guys that had been your top prospects and stuff. And again, for the return, I think it's a fantastic trade for Craig Conroy. I know we've had reactions like in the past, cough, cough, the Matthew Tkachuk trade, when you see a first, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schwint, talent, and Jonathan Huberdeau, and it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck is Bill Zito doing? So I don't want to like count my chickens too early, in the sense that a lot can happen, and maybe there's something that Philly saw that we're not necessarily seeing right now, having only watching them play twice a year. But as it stands right now, it's a trade that I think the Flames are super, super excited about. The Flames fan base should be incredibly excited about, because I think what it also does very well is the Flames are obviously in the hunt for the playoffs. At this point, their first that went to Montreal is pretty much all but gone. It's going to take a miracle for the Flames to end 10th or lower in the up for a fantasy or a lottery pick. If they're 10th or higher, the pick goes to Montreal anyway. So I think at this point in the season, that pick is pretty much done and dusted, and there's no hope that the Flames are going to get it. So it's like, you know what? They did a fantastic job retooling, but still staying competitive by adding those two guys. And like, let's not forget either, Jacob Pelche could have been lost on waivers this year. He was put on waivers at the start of the season that we saw, or maybe not at the start of the season, but pretty early on in the season, that saw Cole Schwint go to Vegas. That was the same waiver period where Pelche somehow filtered right through. You can make the argument that there's a guy like Kuzmenko who is KHL bound at the end of this season, if somehow the Flyers do end up signing him, but who knows what'll happen on that end of things. But a guy, at least for the Flames, that we pretty much wrote him off already, and a guy in Pelche that quite honestly we could have lost way earlier in the season without adding guys in. I'm just seeing on TSN the trade is officially official. As reported by TSN a minute ago, and it is, as we stated, Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee to Calgary in exchange for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelche, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2028 seventh-round pick as well. Now, I'll get to the picks, because that's a whole nother argument that I want to bring up into tonight's game. But as I said, I think with Pelche, like the fact that we could have lost him for nothing, and now we have two guys that have proven to have NHL, they can play in the NHL and are 24 and 25 years old, is a great add for the Flames. And again, the biggest, the most somber part of tonight's trade is Jacob Pelche leaving. And of course, he was just such a glue guy in that locker room. And it is something that myself, I'm sad to see him go as well, especially when, he's been so fantastic for the Flames as of late. And even Kuzmenko, he's been hot as well. But I'm glad that he picked up, like I was saying to some of my friends today earlier, that, Kuzmenko, the minute he gets hot, like ship him out, because we have no idea how streaky he's going to get. So I think it's the perfect time. I think Connor is like, okay, he's finally clicking here. Let's not risk him kind of going back into another downhill in terms of performance. Let's get him out while we can, and of course Peltz's value went up a little bit as well, just based on his performance lately as well. And like, I think with Pelche too, like, I don't want to be that guy and stuff as well, but I feel like the trajectory at this rate and kind of where we saw Pelche being, he played fantastic this year, and I really do think so. But I think in the long run of things, I think he's going to have a career that's, bouncing between the middle six and bottom six as a good penalty killing forward. Like, he's shown shades of being a solid player for the Flames and stuff, and I'm not taking that away from him, but I don't necessarily think that the Flames traded away a potential superstar in Jacob Pelche. I could eat my words in a couple seasons now, but I think it would have been a lot different if you see a guy like Connor Zary or Matt Coronado go out the door instead of him. So I think that is a win for the Flames, as sucks as it sees the guy go, and obviously we're all going to miss him. I just think, I think there was a ceiling in which Jacob Pelche's game could reach, and I don't think it would be one that would be that superstar-esque type thing. And by no means am I saying Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee are going to have a more potential and stuff than Pelche, but I just think that's a guy that, if you think about it strategically, it makes sense to lose him for the value we got back. And to say that as well, of course, the two things I haven't talked about yet are the picks that were sent the other way. And again, I've said it a million times on stream. I'm very, very, very opposed to sending out trades or sending out picks in trades, and I still am at this point. But I think for the value we have in Frost and Farabee, I really, really do think that sending them a second round pick this year and a 7th round pick in 2028 is fantastic work for Craig Conroy, especially with the Flames having 2 second round picks this year too. Of course, we traded ours, which is going to be lower, as the second one is Colorado's, I believe, or maybe it's Washington's. Either way, I think it was Colorado's, but then it was traded to Washington, but then was traded back to Calgary in the Mangiapane trade. Either way, it's a second, but we have 2 seconds this year, so we didn't necessarily give up a second. But of course, the biggest thing is we didn't give up a first, and I was kind of hesitant when I saw that Frost and Farabee were the return, because I'm like, hey, I kind of think a first might be coming the other way. And I think if you look at just where Pelche was drafted, as well as Frost and Farabee, we essentially send a first-round pick out the door in Pelche. We bring 2 more in Frost and Farabee, and then Kuzmenko is obviously that free agent signing that Vancouver had a couple seasons ago, so there wasn't even a draft pick affiliated with him. So it's like I kind of expected a first to come back to even things out, but the fact that it's a second and the Flames have 2 of them this year, I think is really, really good stuff from Craig Conroy. Of course, we give up the what will most likely be the higher of the 2 seconds, but either way, the fact that we keep both Florida and New Jersey's, I think by keeping Florida and New Jersey's first as well is just monumental in terms of the rebuild and stuff. So really, I think we have to give Craig Conroy a pat on the back. Now I'm talking like crazy, and I've neglected the YouTube chat tonight, and I am sorry for that. So I'm gonna go through and catch up to kind of what is going on in the chat as well. JC, I like the move. Frost and Farabee are good young players who need a change. Pilche too. I don't mind giving up a second and a 7th. I absolutely agree. I think just the return or what we give for those 2 guys is a fantastic job from Conroy, and that brings up like Pelche needing to change. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think he's kind of he really did pick up the pace. I will say I really like Jacob Pelche as a player. He seems like such a like, as I said, he's such a energetic spark to this roster. I am very nervous to see how he does under a coaching style like John Tortorella. I'm scared for him, genuinely. Just I don't want to. I don't necessarily know how he will adapt to that kind of coaching style compared to what he was expected in with Ryan Huska. And the same thing with Kuzmenko, for a guy that is arguably struggling exponentially this year. Hasn't been the type of player that the Flames acquired him for and what he wanted to be. I don't necessarily know if a guy like Tortorella and the demands that a coach like that has is something that will really help Kuzmenko's confidence and stuff too. So I am interested to see how that end of the trade goes for those 2 guys, and obviously wish either one of them the best, but especially with the young guy dynamic and John Tortorella, that's something I'm nervous for Jacob Pelche. But either way, big trade for the Flames tonight. Matt C, I'm sad about Pelts. Yeah, I think that's going to be a mutual feeling for most of the fan base tonight. Looks like no retention on Kuzi. That's wild too. I know Eric France has mentioned that there might be some sort of wouldn't have been surprised to see if there was some sort of contract retention and a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen come to Calgary as well. Of course, that didn't happen. That was something I was curious about too, considering just how rough the Flames have been looking, and Rasmus Ristolainen has been the quarterback for one of the 2 power plays in Philly as well. And that's also a good point. Like, Frost and Farabee both play power play time, and the Flames power play has absolutely stunk this year. So I'm interested to see how those guys slot into the power play positions as well. Carter Burnson kind of seems like they could be loading up for a playoff push. I think they did. That's what I admire about this trade, is the Flames did what they needed to do for the future of Calgary. Like, they picked up players that either already have tenure that are going to be around for 3 to 4 more years, or they have an RFA that they can hopefully re-sign to a pretty significant contract based on how the rest of the season goes. So they not only keep the Flames competitive in the wild card race, because obviously, as I said, our first round pick is pretty much gone to Montreal at this point. So we're staying competitive. We get younger. We get guys we can build around for the future, and that's why I really like this play. I don't necessarily know if it's a full-on playoff push for Calgary, but either way, they do a good job keeping competitive. And honestly, if you think about who comes in and who went out, I think you could say the Flames even got better while retooling very well. So I fantastic for sure. Projected third line: Farabee, Frost, Sharon, Govich looks good to me. I don't know how the lines would shake up. I hope to see Frost maybe a little higher. I think with him being a centerman, Backlund kind of has locked down that 3C role, so I think Frost will probably play up on the second line. But I mean, even Sharon Govich might need a change of scenery in terms of like a different line mate and stuff. And I think Farabee might. I wouldn't hate the idea of bumping Coronado up to the second line, playing with Frost, maybe sending Farabee to the third, and have like a Frost, Sharon Govich, Coronado line. Of course, I'm not a coach, so I can't say exactly how things would shake up, but I don't hate that line. Yeah, and Peltz and Kuzi were both starting to warm up, and I think Craig Conroy took advantage of that because you don't really know how the rest of the season is going to shake up. Matt C., who has the highest ceiling out of Peltz, Frost, and Farabee? I think I would say it's so tough to say, right? Because Pelche really grew into himself as a player this year, and something that I was super, super impressed about. But I do think that there is a ceiling on Pelche that isn't much more than a bottom two-line pairing and a good shutdown penalty kill player. I think I want to say there's probably more offensive firepower in a Frost and a Farabee. Like, as I said, Farabee was a 2-time 20-goal scorer this in his career, and again, he's only 24. So I would say in terms of offensive production, I think there's probably a higher ceiling on Farabee and Frost than there is on Peltz. But again, they might be a little rougher around the edges in terms of a defensive game as well. But either way, I mean, the Flames have struggled scoring, so if we can inject those two guys in the lineup, I think it could bode well for the Flames as well, even if you keep Dustin Wolf around as well. The second rounder going out hurts more than the players. I don't disagree. I think the second rounder in Pelche is really the big pieces. A 2028 seventh is like, I mean, sure, you like that's just throw it in and we'll worry about that in 3 years, right? And then again, Kuzmenko, I think he's really the dark horse of this. I wouldn't be surprised to see his production come up a little bit just because, he gets traded from the Flames and is fantastic, right? So maybe he just has he just plays really well again once he gets his footing in a new place, and then it just starts to taper off as well. And again, he's only got this year left on his contract too, so that's more of like a loan type player than either Farabee and Frost are. The seventh is more valuable than Kuzi. Yeah, when I heard he was involved, I'm like, just toss us a seventh and let's just get on with it. That's kind of where I thought the night was leading. I'm like, all right, he's going to Philly for a seventh, maybe a sixth if we're lucky. I'm like, you know what? We could have lost him by some sort of contract termination. So you know what? We'll take it and just take the pick and move on, whatever. Hate Torts, guys horrible for young guys. Completely agree. Torts will make Kuzi cry. Completely agree. I will say I'm interested to see. I believe him and Mishkov both played together in Russia, so there might be some sort of chemistry between the two guys there. Okay, that is it for the trade segment because I've been rambling on for 33 minutes, and in case you guys didn't know, a Flames game happened tonight as well, so I should probably talk about that. Of course, the big talk of the town was the Kuzmenko trade. But either way, let's talk a little bit about the game. Flames defeat the Ducks 4-1. It was a rough period to start. The first period, the Ducks score shorthanded, back-to-back shorthanded goals against on the Flames. Giveaway from Anderson. I saw that first period and I was like, oh, what are we in for tonight? I can't say. I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough game. I wasn't expecting much. And the Flames really just kind of stepped it up. I don't know whether it was kind of just the somberness of the first and seeing their boy seeing their boy Pelche kind of pack his bags and stuff, but they came out flying, especially in that third, but the second I thought they were better as well. And of course, as Matt C said, this trade is getting in the way of a Coronado hat trick. 100%. I think so. I said it earlier when Connor Zary got injured, Jacob Pelche stepped up and had more of like a legacy game in his kind of absence. And I think tonight was the same thing for Coronado. You know, he saw Pelche go, and I don't know what was going on through his mind, but he kind of, I mean, the way it seemed like is Zary's injured, Pelche's gone. I'm really the main young guy here. Besides Dustin Wolf, who seems to be stellar every single night, Coronado goes, I'm stepping up. I'm showing this team that I am a pivotal part in this organization, and I am taking matters into my own hands. And he was lights out tonight. I think this is probably that first goal he scored with that quick shot from the slot that nobody was really prepared for. I think that's what makes his game so good, is he has that quick, like that lightning quick release that I will say feels like all these young guys are coming up. They have that release, but that is such a quick and fast and elite release. And I think, you know, that's his success. He's maybe not the smoothest skater in the world. He's not the quickest skater in the world, but you know what? That kid can shoot it. You give him the time and the space, he's going to make you pay. Of course, it is against the Ducks, but albeit he was lights out again. Took advantage of a turnover by, oh my goodness, I can't remember who was in net tonight for John Gibson. Thank you. He took advantage of a giveaway by John Gibson for his second of the night, and of course, completes the hat trick, or the Natty Hatty, as many people called it tonight. The Natty Hatty by Matty tonight with the empty net goal as well. Yeah. No, I think if we're talking about the rebuild, I think that's a guy that you build around, right? Again, I don't know necessarily if he's going to be your superstar forward of the future, but I think he's going to be that 2C, or not 2C, but that second line reliable guy that is going to put 25-30 pucks in the back of the net every season. That's kind of the trajectory. I hope to see more from him, maybe 35-40. But I really like his game. His game was phenomenal tonight, and I think he really stepped up for the Flames tonight, because that first period, there was nothing there. Felt like there was no energy, and they were letting a lottery team kind of walk all over them, and that was my big concern. I'm like, okay, I was interested to see how the Flames fared, you know, having had a really tough schedule in Minnesota, Winnipeg, and Washington in 3 consecutive games against 3 consecutive, Stanley Cup contenders this year. And I'm like, all right, let's see what they're going to do to bounce back against a team that is going to be in the running for first overall this year, right? So the way the first started, I wasn't super thrilled about how things were going. And as I said, Coronado kind of stepped up the occasion and said, hey, like, my team needs me. I want to prove that I'm a pivotal piece and I'm an important piece to this roster. And he made it count with his hat trick tonight. Same thing with Dustin Wolf. I thought he was lights out. This team is not, in wild card conversation if it isn't for Dustin Wolf. And you think about how many times a guy like that has bailed out the Flames in countless games as well. And I saw a tweet that I'm trying to find and give this guy credit, because he said it very well. Of course, I'm not going to find it, as so much pressure is being put on me to find it, but it was something along the lines of, Dustin Wolf is the guy that wins the games for the Flames, and Ryan Huska is the coach that gives puts the chemistry together for the Flames. I'm butchering it, and I can't remember his Twitter, his tag on Twitter, but either way, Dustin Wolf continues to be a monumental player on this roster for the Flames. It's massive to have him, and I think I was hesitant at the start of the season to necessarily pin him as the goaltender of the future for the Flames, but the way that the Flames are playing right now behind him really does make me think that he is the Flame of the future. Oh, okay, here it is. I found it. At Tony Rouge. Dustin Wolf is why they win. Ryan Huska is why they are a team. I don't know why, but that tweet really hit me. I couldn't agree more. I think that's the dynamic of the team, right? You have a goaltender in Wolf that will win you games, but Ryan Huska and the Flames management is building such a close team and a connected team that you can show it shows every night that these guys care about each other. They want to win together. They want to support each other, and that is the foundation of not only speaking about this season specifically, but that's a foundation of a really close knit team that that has the potential to be a very tough to beat team mentally in the future and stuff. And that's a fantastic foundation that Ryan Huska is building. So kudos to at Tony Rouge on Twitter/X. He's had some pretty good tweets tonight that I was following along closely with as well. I would also be remiss to not talk about a guy that I've had in my good books that I've maybe gotten a few people kind of laughing at me for, and that is Adam Klapka. I've said with the whole ordeal of the Zari injury and Kuzmenko being sad and what we've seen with the injuries to Mantha and Kirkland, I keep saying it's like, oh, who on the Wranglers are we gonna pull up? And we pull up the Rory Cairns who had a stint. I mean, Pelche came up and became a mainstay. Most recently, prior to Klapka, we had Clark Bishop, and the entire time I'm yelling at everybody saying, you have a 6'8" European forward that all he does is ruin guys' careers by driving them into the boards. He is a big body that will sit in front of the net and be an absolute pest, and we're not taking advantage of it. And what does he do tonight? Have the nicest goal I've ever seen scored by a guy over 6'8". I thought he had a fantastic game tonight. I think he had the game of his life. Incredibly impressed with his game, and that doesn't surprise me. Like I said, they have the guys, they have the Jacob Trubas of the world, the Radko Gooses that all they do is throw the body, and we need a tough guy like that. And of course, as much as I love a guy like Ryan Lomberg and a guy that will look up to these guys who are 2 feet taller than him and go toe to toe with them, at the same time, we have a 6'8" European forward that will do that for you and win these battles. And that second period goal, I didn't think 6'8" guys could move laterally that well, but man, did he prove me wrong. So we have to give him, I want to give him a pat on the back in that sense as well. I was incredibly impressed with his game. Super happy to see him come up. And I think, barring, I don't necessarily know what the lineup is going to look like following tonight's trade. I mean, 2 forwards in, 2 forwards out. But of course, Kuzmenko's a guy that was kind of a in and out type guy. I would like to see a little bit more opportunity from Klapka. I think he plays a better game than Kevin Rooney does. No offense to the Wranglers captain Clark Bishop either, but I think in what we saw from Klapka tonight, I think he is a guy that can really step up to I think he could play a really good fourth line role for the Flames. So I do hope to see him in the lineup more frequently as well too. I know this game has kind of got off the rails completely, and I haven't even done a good job keeping up the periods. I think we're in period 3 now. Who knows? But this seems like a really good time to do an ad read, so I'm going to do that now, and then we'll keep talking about the Flames. Looking for ways to help an upstart media company employing over 30 young journalists and analysts across Canada. If you have a few spare bucks kicking around, and you get oh my goodness, I screwed that up completely. You head to our Patreon page at patreon.com/the Game Over Network. There you'll find multiple tiers featuring different rewards and goodies for helping us grow. There's an extra access, exclusive look behind the scenes, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to give us feedback, and you can join us for special shows live where you can interact with hosts as we launch more ways to improve your experience. If you're not able to spare a few dollars, we have a free tier available so you don't miss out. If you really want to help us, make sure to click like and subscribe on YouTube, rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, and share our work on your social media of choice. That's patreon.com/the Game Over Network for tantalizing goodies. Now, I think, I have the trade bug conversation now coming up for me, and I kind of want to maybe dive into it a little bit more as to what else the Flames need to do before the March 7th deadline. Of course, I will be happy to just kind of open this into a talk from me, and let's start loading up some questions in the YouTube chat, and I will address those as well. But my next kind of question and what I'm interested about is what direction that the Flames go in terms of the trade deadline. And again, like I said, I've said it a million times. I think Craig Conroy nailed it with the demands the Flames need, I think he nailed it with the demands the Flames need for the future of the franchise, but also where they currently sit in the playoff race. They got not necessarily younger, but they built out their roster of younger guys to build around for the future, but while keeping the Flames competitive as well. And so now seeing that trade and kind of seeing what is on Craig Conroy's mind and kind of where he's looking at, because obviously he still wants to stay a contender or a competitor for the pardon me, for a wild card spot. Oh my gosh, my brain is fried today. It just makes me consider what direction we're going to go in at the deadline. And I will say this, I think heading into the season, Conroy had a rebuild slash retool slash whatever you want to call it on the mind. I think heading into the season, he had the same mentality. I think as of right now, in this exact minute at 10:28 p.m. Mountain Time, I think he needs to have the exact same mentality in terms of let's focus on the future of the Flames, not necessarily just trying to squeeze into the playoffs to maybe have a fighting chance to get out of the first round, maybe do some sort of 2015 comeback kid type thing. Let's emphasize the importance of building out a future based on who we could feasibly find new homes for before the deadline. And I think that's going to be a guy like Dan Vladar. I think the way Wolf is playing, I'm happy to, barring anything crazy, I'm happy to give him more of the reins in the future through the regular season. And I think you can sacrifice giving up Vladar to potentially add a player, add a pick, you name it. I think Devin Cooley, I think I called him Logan Cooley the other day, but I think Devin Cooley has proven, I mean, the Wranglers are killing it right now in the AHL. So I think Devin Cooley has proved that he can potentially play a couple of games in the NHL. Backstop Wolf, kind of give Wolf more of the starting mantle. And really kind of be behind him in terms of a playoff run. And I think Vladar is a guy that you can potentially sack off. Of course, Kuzmenko was a guy that I think you could also, was obviously trade fodder. And I know it's unpopular, and I mean I know it's a very contrast conversation, but I also think a guy like Rasmus Anderson could potentially find a new home at the deadline. I'm not necessarily super on the sell train, but I think if the right deal comes up, he would be one I would look at moving. Albeit, I'm reading the chat and Matt C brings up a very valid point. I think we need to trade for another top 4D, or at least somebody who could play those minutes. How much we've missed Ball is a bit concerning. I 100% agree. Before this trade broke, I had on one of my talking points is defense woes, and you just look at the pairings that we've seen for the Flames tonight, and we had a Joel Hanley and Rasmus Anderson first line. Like, that shouldn't be happening. And I think 100% missing Ball is a really big point as well. I think he's a dark horse on this Flames roster, and I think he's an unsung hero. I think he's been playing fantastic, and you know, obviously that first round pick from New Jersey in the Markstrom trade is a really valuable piece. But I think more and more as the season goes on, you realize how important Ball is too. And again, he fits that profile for the Flames, a young defenseman to build a future around. Like you lock him down, he's not going anywhere. He's still young. He's still 24, 25. Lots of game left in him and stuff. So 100%, I think Kevin Ball, great ad, and it is tough to see him go, especially with him having that week-to-week label. But again, you know, there's a concern if we have Hanley, who has been the Flames' 7th/8th defenseman this year, on the first pairing. Like, you know, that screams like there's an issue. We had the Jake Bean, Mackenzie Weegar that we've seen on and off this season, and then the Tyson Barrie, Braden Pahal. Again, Braden Pahal is another guy that I've really enjoyed, and I'm glad that we signed him down to an extension. But again, we have that's a concerning lineup. So again, like, I think there's a conversation that if the right deal comes, I think a guy like Anderson could potentially be a good trade fodder piece. Again, I think just considering his age and the direction the Flames are going, like a Nazem Kadri, as good as he's been playing, I know there has been rumors that he's been linked, going back to Toronto, stuff like that. I think there is a market out there for him. Either way, I think if there's any opportunity for the Flames to add pieces that are similar to the Morgan Frosts of the world, the Joel Farabees, Kevin Balls, I do think there is opportunity, and I think that's kind of the type of guys Craig Conroy is targeting. And I think that just shows that it's more of, I don't know, I hate the like retool versus rebuild type thing, but I don't necessarily think he's like wanting to be a solely lottery team. I think he wants to make this team just pretty competitive with this young new wave of guys coming up. But I think those are big names that we could potentially see going out. And who knows? Like, I mean, you can never have too many centers. Michael Backlund, Morgan Frost, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the Naz, I guess, on the first line. If we can add another center, I don't hate that. I think defense is probably a big thing. It's probably tough to find a young defenseman that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg. Try and hang on to those first round picks. I think we move those at almost I think it's a really nice piece and a really nice prospect has to come back if we are to move on from our first, because we have a plethora of them, and I think it's pretty important to kind of build around those type picks as well. But I do think the Flames kind of address the biggest need in a middle six center in Morgan Frost, pick up another potentially high scoring winger in Joel Farabee. And yeah, I think that's the big pieces that the Flames were looking at. Matsy in the chat again. I agree on Klapka. That's the sort of guy you want on your fourth line. It's a pity he can't really fight for a guy his size, but you have to be pretty brave. Well, pretty brave to find that out. Absolutely, and I think fighting is one thing, but also just giving these guys punishing checks is another, and he does that really well too. He had a rush today. Um, we had a rush today that the defenseman kind of stepped up and he just like ran through the guy and didn't stop. I was when he's moving, I don't think he needs to fight to be an absolute menace on the ice. I think his size just speaks volumes, if that makes sense. Yeah, Matt C, I think you need to trade another top four, 4D. JC, you have to reward the team for their play this year by making a move. I think this is a big move for the Flames. Conroy will listen, but probably won't buy big at this deadline. 100%. I think, and again, I see Fraser in the chat as well. Thought we were a bottom five team. Wolf's play forced Conroy's hand. That's exactly it on the head. As I said, the Flames at this point of the season, let's just consider that first round pick that was dealt to Montreal with the conditions. It comes back to Calgary if it's in the top 10. I think that is as good as gone at this point. The Flames are playing good. They're proving that they can kind of keep up with the middle of the pack. I thought they looked decent against Washington. Had a good game against Minnie before they almost blew it. Winnipeg kind of beat the bricks off them, but it was kind of a back-to-back as well. So I think we can kind of not really lose too much sleep over that game. But yeah, I think this deep into the season, they've proven that they do want to make a run for it and try and sneak in as a wild card team and maybe even climb up the ranks of the Pacific Division and maybe sneak in that spot as well. They really forced Conroy's hand. But in that same argument, I think Conroy stuck to the needs that he wanted, and I think the value that we sent came back. Like I really do like the value that came back from that trade as well. So I think that's a pretty big win for both the Flames being kind of playoff contenders and in contention for a playoff spot, as well as the future of the organization as well too. We are hitting the 53-minute mark of tonight's stream, so I think this is going to be the time I will call her quits. I'm going to do one more ad read if there are any additional questions or thoughts following tonight's game. Again, I didn't do a very good job keeping track of the game itself, but the trade, we were pretty thorough with it. If there's any more thoughts on that, feel free to throw it in the live chat and I'll get to that. And if not, we'll wrap things up shortly. But if you are enjoying the show so far, you probably want more of this, I'd assume. Well, make sure you hit the like button on this video, click subscribe on our channel, and make sure you check the notification bell so you're alerted when we go live. If you're listening to our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating or even write a positive review. If you really like us, make sure to follow us on your favorite social media platforms. You can find the Game Over Network on Blue Sky at thegameovernetwork.com, on TikTok and Twitter at Game Over NHL, on Instagram, Threads, and LinkedIn at Game Over Network. So we're pretty much on every platform you can find us on. And of course, if you want to chat with me, I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky, so you feel free to send me a DM there. If not, we do have Discord as well that you can join and chat with us ahead of games, during games, all that kind of stuff. Feel free to chat with us on there as well. And lastly, you can also find us at thegameovernetwork.com, where you can sign up for our upcoming newsletter that we will be having out as well. One more breeze through the chat here. I don't think Rasmus goes anywhere this year. I think the right deal, if the right deal kind of comes up, I think Conroy might make a move, but I also don't think he's going to be maybe a guy on the trading block. I think Vladar is really the big one, if you ask me. Carter Burnson again, retool, not rebuild. Flames are back. I don't know. I don't love the retool versus rebuild conversation, because I feel like the Flames have gotten burned on retools in the past. I think last year it showed that they were on a big rebuild, having, sent your Hannafins and your Lindholms out the door type thing. I mean, it was something that had to be done as well. But we did get the picks that we needed. We did get a great draft and a great up and coming prospect in a guy like Zane Parekh as well. So I'd still kind of want to lean a little bit more on the rebuild side of things, but maybe we did speed up that process with the retool. And again, I guess as excited as we are about tonight's trade, it's only time will tell. Where things go and what direction the Flames go in. But I think for what it's worth right now, and examining it day of and what we've seen in the past, I think it is a good get by Conroy. I think it's a good move. I think it makes sense. I don't think it's kind of like a sporadic move that kind of seems like he panicked and just needed to make something. It was strategic. It made sense. It makes sense. I think the value was good for it. Didn't give up a first, which is monumental. I think that's the big one. I mean, granted, with us having New Jersey and Florida's picks for the first round this year, I think we're going to be picking pretty high in the draft anyway. We're not going to be having any lottery picks by any stretch of the imagination. But either way, keep hold on to two of those guys. So when the first round comes, we can kind of pick our two guys first. And of course, we still have a second from Colorado too. So we got rid of one of our 2 seconds. In a 2028 7th, which is something that I'm going to worry about in 2028. And at the end of the day, it is also a 7th. So am I really too concerned about it? I wouldn't say so. So, of course, biggest thing that second is, I believe as Matt C said, the second hurts, and obviously Pelche. Wish him all the best. I mean, he was a lot of fun on this team, and he really kind of grew into a really strong, two-way defensive forward this season. And it's obviously tough to see a young guy go, and especially how much it means to the Flames, and just how big of a favor he was in the city of Calgary. But at the end of the day, I think the Flames got better from it. I think there's more vision into what direction Conroy wants to take, and I think it's a really exciting division as well too. So with that being said, we're going to shut things down. Flames are back in action on Saturday night when they take on the Detroit Red Wings at the Scotiabank Saddledome. As usual, we're going to have a stream post-game as well, so watch out for that. There's most likely a good chance that we'll probably see both Frost and Farabee in the lineup for the first time on Saturday, so keep your eyes peeled for that game. It'll be a really interesting one to see how those guys jive in their first game with the Flames, as well as kind of what we see the lines kind of are. I think there's lots of discussion to be made. And it's exciting. I think the Flames, the push to the playoffs is very much there. They regained the second wild card spot after a win tonight, passing the Canucks, and I mean the Kings are also struggling this right now too. So if the Flames can kind of put together a bit of a hot streak, there might be a good position come February, March, and hopefully April when we see them in the playoffs as well. So thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate the support, the love as usual, and obviously I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. So take care, and we will see you guys back here on Saturday night following the Flames and Red Wings game.